Okay, everyone, hello and welcome today to our little bit of a LinkedIn Live session for you. Bit of an introduction first, a quick one. I'm Alan, I'm Managing Director of Zuko Analytics. This is my colleague Adam, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Adam. I'm account man. No, I'm no longer. I've got a new title. I'm head of customer success as of this week. So yeah, I work alongside Alan in terms of looking at data, optimizing, recommendations, strategy, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. And a well-deserved job title change as well. So just a little bit about Zuko before we move on to our topic, which is all about how you optimize online forms specifically compared to their desktop counterparts. So if we just click forward into the deck here, so Zuko, we are a form analytics platform. We've been analysing and optimising forms for over 10 years now. So we've got real expertise in the form game. We also, as well as the analytics, we provide consultancy to a whole range of businesses on how to improve their form UX and conversion rates. And we've created a lot of content which we give away for free on our website. More than welcome to go and have a look at it. But what we thought we'd do today is, because we often get asked about mobile forms, how they differ from desktop forms and how to optimize them, we will do a short session on this to give you a few tips that we've picked up over the years, and hopefully they'll be useful for you as well. So without further ado, I will hand over to Adam, who's kind of our expert in this. I'll be jumping in, but he'll be leading this. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Because this is a LinkedIn Live, there probably will be a delay, but we will get to it if we can. Without further ado, Adam, over to you.
Yeah, let's jump in. So yeah, kind of as Alan alluded to, the importance of mobile, formatting your forms and optimizing your forms for mobile devices is really important. Just for that stat alone, over 60% of internet traffic is mobile traffic. And so there's a high chance, it depends on the nature of the form, but there's a big chance that the majority of your traffic coming into the form is on a mobile device. Now, we work in form optimization generally. There are general principles around form optimization that are good kind of standard things that everybody should be doing. But there are particular things on mobile that we really should be taking extra care to look at, just because of the way of how forms render on mobile phones. So things like, it's a smaller screen, you don't have a mouse, you don't have a keyboard, it's a touch screen. And these create certain challenges that are unique for mobile devices. So that's why we've decided to do this session today, looking specifically at things you can do on mobile. So first tip, can cause a debate, this online, probably seen it before, but it's that question of single column versus multi-column, and what is the correct format really to use for mobile devices, or for forms generally, but specifically in this case for mobile. We would say that ideally you want a single column format. That is because it's consistent. The user expects that the fields will be stacked upon each other. They're not then having to look around the screen to see if there are any other columns loitering elsewhere. It's expected formatting for the user. It reduces their kind of mental load, let's say, in having to look and try and find where fields might be hiding on your form. Beyond just the fields on your form, other things that you might want to look at are around information that is around the form fields themselves, but is also as important as the fields. So we've got an example here of, this is from a desktop format. You'll see that on the right hand side, there's some key information here to help the user in terms of what you will need. So things like national insurance number. These are kind of techniques to prepare the user to complete the form. Be careful that on a mobile format, this kind of key information isn't being cut out of your screen, because it is just as important for your mobile users as it is for your desktop users. So you really kind of want to have a reactive, responsive format that means that all the key information, as well as the fields, appears on the form. just so you're not kind of degrading the experience for your mobile users versus your desktop users. So very important to define what's important for your users.
Definitely, and I can testify to this. I tried to fill out some Italian government forms, which were basically built for desktop, and I had like 3 columns, I think, and on a mobile format, it's an absolute nightmare to try and zoom in and even find the fields. So I would definitely give this one a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think I remember that one in question. It was particularly bad, wasn't it, that one? Second point, avoid long single page forms. So again, it's going to depend on the nature of the form. We've got an example here that it's a mobile application or a mobile kind of quote, mortgage quote form. These are generally long-winded forms with lots of questions that are going to take a while for the user to fill out. What you don't want to do is really lead to a situation where the user is having to scroll without end to see where the endpoint is. So you want to split up forms into multi-step forms, group questions together that are of a similar nature, and then have 5, 6 different steps that are clearly defined for your users. And it's just easy. It's breaking down the form into easy to digest steps that the user can progress through without having to scroll and see how far they have to go to get down to the bottom. It also reduces the element of having things hidden under the fold as well on screens, or less so than some one kind of long-winded thing like this example here. Other things that you can do with that in mind are introduce things when you got a multi-step like progress bars. So once you've grouped together your similar form fields, you can give that step a title. You can incorporate it in a progress bar. The user can see the progress bar. They can see how many steps there are to the end. It also helps to manage their expectations because they can see what the following steps are, without it being this unknown of 1, how long have I got to go, and 2, kind of what are the following questions going to be. Have you got anything to add on that, Alan, or?
Nothing else, but you can kind of just see just the visual effect of the scroll is just is pretty bad, and people just often scroll through and then they're not even bothered starting because they just see it's crazy long.
Yeah, it's just people look at it and think, how long is this going to take to do? I don't have time. I'm going to kind of jump out now. This is far too onerous for me. So yeah, we want to reduce that kind of psychological impact as much as possible, and breaking it into bite-sized steps is good practice for that. Tip number 3, finger friendliness. So it goes without saying, to state the obvious, finger is not a mouse. And so we want to kind of make it as easy as possible for all users to interact with the form fields, knowing that some users might be a little bit clumsy, some kind of fat fingers or whatever. It might be more difficult for certain users to interact with certain elements. So kind of key examples of this are things like radio buttons and checkboxes, where if you look at the example here, the Newcastle United example, you've got some really, really small checkboxes here, or radio buttons. These are kind of fiddly for users to interact with. So what we want to do is make it as large as possible to increase kind of the tappable area that the user has to make their selection. So the target pixel size is 44 by 44. Introduce spacing as much as possible between the elements as well, if you can, just to reduce the element of people making errors. If they're too close together, they can easily select the wrong one. And it just improves the UX for users. They're reducing kind of unforced errors, let's say, that are caused by them having to find fiddly little elements on the form. Other things that you can do are to reduce make field formatting as simple as possible. There is sometimes a bit of a tendency to introduce things like scrollers, a bit like the example here, that look nice. They might have some sort of functionality in that, the input reacts to the scroll and it looks good, let's say, but these are really quite difficult for users on mobile to interact with. If they're making a selection between increments of $5,000, krona, whatever it is here, and again, they're slightly clumsy in how they interact with it, that's going to be really quite hard for them to make their selection. So simple UX, text boxes, where brings up a keypad where users can type in, reducing kind of the fancy scroll and the frustration that comes with it is good practice. So the most simple, easy to fill out fields should really take precedence over how something looks, or how it, how we can use JavaScript to make things look interesting, let's say, aesthetically. With that in mind, adapting your HTML input types for a mobile device is really important. So remember, your user doesn't have a keyboard. So when they're putting in things like a telephone number or an email address, the keypad that they're using should really be adapted to the nature of the field. So key example here is a phone number. If you just have a standard input type of text, which I suppose you might consider as the default, what that's going to do is going to bring up a standard keyboard without numbers on it. You're asking for a phone number. So what the user then has to do is to find the 1, 2, 3 to find the keypad, and that's probably going to bring up small numbers, small kind of tappable elements for them to fill out. It really makes the effort that is required to filling in a phone number a lot harder than it needs to be. When all you can do is simply change the input type to a tel type, and that is going to bring up a keypad when the user interacts with that field. As you can see there, you've got big numbers, traditional kind of numeric keypad format. It's a lot more difficult for the user to make mistakes with their input. And it's conversely a lot easier for them to fill out a phone number in that case. In the case of an email, having an input type of email, that's going to bring up things that are specific to an email. So kind of the @ symbol, .com buttons, stuff like that. So again, it's going to make filling out those specific fields easier. There's a whole bunch of different HTML input types that you can use. We've got a list here. It's not just the tel or the email. You've got other ones as well that kind of native HTML that you can use: number, month, date, time, date. So thinking about how what your field is asking for and how it renders on a mobile device, and then putting that thinking into how you are building the input types for your HTML is really important. It's really going to free up the experience for your mobile users.
Yeah. And just to add to that, in terms of our experience, it's probably around 40% of forms that don't do this. So it's a very common thing that forms are not doing it. So it's an easy thing to check on your form and just have a nice simple improvement to the UX just by changing this, like Adam says.
Yeah, it's a super quick win. If you're not doing it, it's kind of the low hanging fruit. It's a very quick change that can really improve the experience for mobile users. Tip number 5, tooltips. There are instances on a form, and this goes into general good practice for form optimization. There are certain fields where it's going to be really useful for you to add additional copy, microcopy around your fields to explain things like why you're asking for certain information. So on the example here, email address, this particular example uses a bit of copy to explain why the user should give their email address. Again, it's a really good thing to do generally, but how that is implemented on mobile is something that you need to think about. So sometimes there is a tendency to use tooltips. So here we can see we've got a very small icon, the question mark in the tooltip, that the user has to interact with in order to see the copy within. There's a couple of issues around it. Again, we've got that really small area that users have to tap. Clumsy fingers, they might not be able to do it easily. They might miss it, so they might not be seeing the copy that's in there within. And then when they do tap it, often on a mobile format, the copy will then cover the input. And so then they can't see what the actual field is, the text field is itself. So what we say is you want to maximize the number of people that are going to see this key copy around these sensitive fields. Have it as fixed micro copy around the field label and move away from tooltips where possible. So if you look at the example underneath, again, it's a very, very similar example using copy to explain why we need the email address. But here it's a lot easier for mobile users. It's fixed. They can see it. It's right by the field label. They're not having to work harder to find that information that's hidden behind a tooltip. It's just there and easily accessible for them. What you don't want to happen is for users to struggle to find that copy and then for them to be asking themselves questions. Why is this form asking me for this information? This is sensitive. You really want to maximize the impact of that copy. So having it as fixed and not hiding it away around the tooltip is good practice. Number 6, don't use drop downs if possible. So this is, again, it's a general good tip for all forms. If we can avoid using drop downs, for example, for a small number of possible options that the user can select, we might consider using radio buttons instead of drop downs. And the effect that it's going to have on the user experience is probably more impactful on mobile. Because, again, you're reducing the workload and you're reducing the capacity for error. So we've got a couple of examples here of title fields. One uses a drop down and the other one uses radio buttons. Look at the first example. Firstly, it's more work for the user. They have to tap the title drop down in order to see the options pop up. That increases the number of taps that they need to make their selection. Within a select, that is then covering a lot of the page coming up. It covers up a lot of the form. And it, generally speaking, it's going to be a smaller, again, selectable, tappable area for the user to make their selection. It increases the likelihood of users making a mistake. Again, if they're having to scroll through a drop down, the scroll might kind of register as a selection. And so then the user has to go back in and reselect. All these little small things are increasing the frustration on your mobile users. Where there is an alternative, as we said in this case, radio buttons, it's a lot easier for your mobile users. They can see all the options that are available to them without having to select and bring up the options. It's a bigger tappable area and it's one input from the user. One tap will make their selection and they can move on. So yeah, in this particular example here, we would definitely recommend using radio buttons in that scenario. Sometimes drop downs are unavoidable. They might be a necessary evil. There are things that you can do though for your mobile users if you are using drop downs to help them navigate the drop down. So let's take the example of a country field. There's 190, 200 countries in the world. It makes sense to use a drop down. However, you want to reduce the scrolling impact. If you're selecting United Kingdom, you don't want to have to scroll through 190 countries before you get down to the bottom of that list. And so you might have a searchable drop down where, yes, it's a drop down, but the user can search on the drop down to reduce the selection and easily find the option that they're looking for. Certain selects, standard selects, obviously the user on a desktop, it will react to that by using a keyboard. Remember, your mobile users, if you're not using a searchable select, a keyboard won't pop up for those users. So they have no option but to scroll through your huge drop down. Think about those users, make it searchable. So when they open their drop down, they can filter by typing in as well.
So just to add one more example to this, you've used the example of countries and of titles. One we often see is date, particularly the year, where you've got to scroll down multiple times to get to your year of birth, depending on how old you are. and therefore it's using, in this case, it's a text box compared to a radio button, but that essentially is just a few taps and you're done, rather than tap, scroll, try and find your one. So there's plenty of reasons not to use drop downs and plenty of alternatives if you look hard enough.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, always think, is there a viable alternative instead of a drop down? And if there is, probably recommend using it. Tip number 7, password fields. So generally say around password fields, you're going to have a masking or unmasking feature. We would probably argue that unmasking as a default is better for mobile users. Thinking about the idea of masking and unmasking kind of harks back to the day, in a sense, where there might have been internet cafes where you're in a less secure location that you want to mask your input for things like that. Completely get it. However, now that we're using our phones more and they are potentially more secure because it's more of a personal environment that you're on your phone, you might want to consider unmasking as a default. So the user can then obviously quite clearly see what they are using as a password. Reduces the likelihood of them making mistakes, especially if there's a confirmed password and there's a mismatch between them because they've made a mistake in one input that's then not replicated in the other. It leads to errors. The user has to go back and correct, but then they're trying to figure out what the error is because they can't see it. Kind of unmasking it as a default is a good idea to reduce the likelihood of that happening. We wouldn't recommend just unmasking without having a masking feature. Give users the option to do so, but by making it as a default, you're reducing the workload on your user to have to go in and unmask and find the icon to unmask it. Again, fiddly icons, things that you want to avoid. But you're giving the user, if they are in public and they want to have that additional kind of masking security possibility, they can do so. And finally, I think this is our last main tip. Phone has native features that can really be used to your advantage on forms now. Things like, again, going back to the country field, geolocalization can kind of help pre-select fields like that. So using those services, you know that you're in the United Kingdom or France, for example, that might be pre-selected at that point according to where you are at that moment in time. Again, that reduces user input because it's already pre-selected for them. Using things like camera for document scanning, QR codes, instead of asking a user for certain forms that they might be asked to confirm their identity by using a passport, uploading a passport, instead of asking for all that information, passport number, name, date of birth, expiry date, etc., it could be done by scanning. And then the form is able to read that information off the scan that it's got. So you can kind of use that to reduce the workload on users. The other example we've got is using biometrics as a login alternative. So instead of the traditional username, password, can you use biometrics on a phone to kind of, knowing that passwords are really difficult fields. In fact, I think it's the biggest source of abandonment that we've registered on forms. It's got the highest abandon rate. Using new technology to bypass these kind of ways of doing things to reduce the form friction might be something that you want to consider. To ease users through the forms. It's almost reducing the form in a way, reducing kind of the manual input and using technology to almost pre-fill that form as much as possible. It can really go a long way to just make the whole experience of form filling a lot easier for users. Okay, that's the main tips that we've come up with. We've got some next steps for you. If you want to ask us any questions or kind of read further or kind of learn more about this kind of stuff, we're quite big on knowledge sharing. So we produce a lot of materials for you to go and read, to do some further reading. So we've got some blogs available for you on a whole range of form optimization strategies, including mobile optimization. We've got white papers, several different white papers looking at different areas of form analytics. And there are different things that we can do with your form as well. So we've got a health check now on our website where you can upload your form and you can get an automated health check into kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly into your form. And we offer free trials of Zuko Analytics as well for 1,000 sessions. So if you've maybe got the feeling that your form's not quite there and it could require some improvement, and you want some data to back that up and get some insights into where you might be falling down a little bit, sign up for a trial. We'll give you 1,000 sessions. You can try it out, and then I'm more than happy to take you through the data and start kind of picking out the initial patterns into what we can see where users are struggling on your form. Beyond that, we offer consultancy as well. So we can help you with your format optimization journey in the form of workshops, written reports, quick impact reports, all of these where we share our knowledge and kind of give you testing strategies and recommendations for improvement. So all of these are available to you. Drop us a note, drop us a message, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you further. And with that in mind, I'm assuming that you follow at least Alan anyway, if you're on this webinar. But if you want to add us onto LinkedIn, then they are our LinkedIn QR codes for you to add us and drop us a message and kind of, yeah, we can pick up the conversation there.
Yeah. And if you just have any questions about forms, or you're intrigued or just want an opinion on something, then feel free to ping us on LinkedIn. More than happy to just do that, have a conversation and just help you where we can. So thanks, Adam, for that tour de force. Hopefully you'll all agree that that's a great set of tips that you can apply to your own mobile web forms. We'll wrap that up now because it's LinkedIn Live. Questions tend to come through late. So if you do want to send a question that occurred to you after watching this, as I said earlier, send myself or Adam a message on LinkedIn. We'd be more than happy to do that. But otherwise, we'll wrap that up there now. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll speak on the internet soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.